Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. Fighting raged in the city of Taiz as the Yemeni army regains control of a number of areas in Ma'rib. Damascus stresses the importance of implementing United Nations Security Council decision and stopping the influx of militants from Syria's neighboring countries. And Iraqi forces liberate a number of neighborhoods in the southern part of the city of Ramadi from Daesh militants. Good evening once again, and thank you for joining us. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos has sent a cable of condolences to a custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, on the victims of the fire incident that erupted in the General Jazan Hospital yesterday. Yemeni sources said that forces of President Hadi regained control of a number of northern areas of the governorate of Ma'rib, and the forces became 20 kilometers away from the capital Sana'a. Meanwhile, 11 Houthi militants and their allies were killed and many others were injured in clashes that took place in the governorate of Taiz, south of the capital Sana'a. Media sources said Arab coalition warplanes staged air raids on positions of the Houthis. 3 from the Yemeni army were killed and few others were injured in battles that took place in Taiz. Syrian Forces Minister Walid al-Muallim stressed today that international efforts to end the conflict should focus on preventing insurgents coming in from neighboring countries to Syria. Al-Muallim said to stop flowing terrorist groups will contribute to achieve a good stage in the political solution of the Syrian crisis. He also stressed the need to implement United Nations Security Council resolutions on fighting terror. His statement came after a day of announcing that Syria was ready to take part in the Geneva talks and hoped the dialogue would help it form a national unity government. Iraq's Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi said today armed forces will move to retake the major northern city of Mosul from Daesh militants once they capture the western city of Ramadi. Iraqi forces said that they have liberated a number of neighborhoods in the southern part of the city of Ramadi and started a campaign to clear them out of bombs left behind by retreating militants of Daesh. Coalition air forces in support of government troops carried out 27 strikes against insurgents' position in the last district they hold in the center of the city, which lies on the river Euphrates, some 100 kilometers west of Baghdad. If captured, Ramadi will be the second major city after Tikrit to be retaken from Daesh in Iraq. Capturing Mosul would deprive Daesh of its biggest population center in both Iraq and Syria, effectively abolishing the structure of Daesh in Iraq, depriving it of a major sources of funding and dealing a blow to its influence. The capture of Ramadi would give the army a major psychological boost in its move towards Mosul. Afghan forces continued their battle to push back the Taliban in Helmand province in southern Afghanistan. Fierce fighting has been underway across much of Helmand for months, a traditional stronghold of the Taliban and a major center for opium that U.S. and British troops fought for years to control. At least 4 districts in Helmand have slipped into Taliban control badly, denting hopes that Afghan security forces would be able to fight on alone after international forces pulled out last year. Government forces have complained bitterly of inadequate supplies and reinforcements and little of the air power that backed up NATO forces when they fought in the region. Months of fighting also disrupted life of local people. Turkish troops killed 6 Kurdish militants in a clash in the restive southeast, and one of the 3 soldiers wounded in the firefight died in hospital. Further north, in the region's largest city of Diyarbakir, part of which is also under curfew, 3 Kurdish rebels were killed in clashes with police yesterday. According to data from the pro-Kurdish People's Democratic Party, at least 38 civilians have been killed during the latest security forces operations, backed by tanks and thousands of troops. State media says 168 Kurdistan Workers' Party militants have been killed. You're watching the Sultanate of Oman television. Still to come in our news bulletin. Bangladesh government has pledged to make swimming lessons mandatory for all school children. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. The Little Consumer Project was held in the Governorate of North Al-Batna. It came to acquaint the school students with necessary knowledge and capabilities to identify products which are good for consumption. It also focused on educating the students through scientific and legal means related to consumer protection, in addition to enrich their daily life skills and nutrition practices. The project included various programs, artistic sessions, as well as an exhibition that included samples of expired items and products, in addition to awareness pamphlets and practical application of ways to inspect the quality of commodities. The participant expressed that such programs play a great role to acquaint the members of the society, and especially the new generation, with the necessary information to buy the good and healthy products. The first big storm of the winter in the United States, blanketing the Greater Lake Tahoe area with snow and hail that are causing traffic headaches for holidays travelers. The storm dumped as much as 22 inches of snow along highway passes and up to 15 inches in Truckee and the Tahoe Basin. The roadway was closed for nearly 24 hours over an 80-mile stretch from North Bend to Ellisonburg due to heavy snowfall, trees leaning over the roadway, and high avalanche danger. In the southeastern U.S., Alabama and Georgia are among the states dealing with the flooding from torrential rains, one day after storms and tornadoes killed at least 14 people in several states.
Help him up.
Flooding in parts of Latin America left 5 people dead and driven almost 150,000 from their homes in Paraguay, Argentina and Uruguay. Some 130,000 people have been forced from their homes across Paraguay as President Horacio Cartes declared a state of emergency to free up more than $3.5 million in disaster funds. 3 people were killed when a tree fell on their vehicle. Another woman traveling by a motorcycle was also killed by a falling tree. Rescue and evacuation operations were underway for dozens of families in the face of flood waters from the Paraguay River. Around the capital, Asuncion, 125,000 homes were without power. Raging bushfires destroyed 2 homes and sent residents of a famous Australian beauty spot fleeing for their lives on Christmas Day, while firefighters struggled to control the blazes using water-bombing aircraft. In the latest of a series of devastating fires that have hit southeastern Victoria state in recent weeks, people in a string of communities on the state's south coast were evacuated to spend Christmas night in hastily organized shelters. More than 150 firefighters with 8 aircraft and 60 fire trucks spent the holiday fighting the fires along the Great Ocean Road, a famously picturesque area to the southwest of Melbourne and a major tourism draw. Rescuers continued to search for 15 people still missing after a ferry capsized in Indonesia last week, killing at least 63 people. The vessel, named Marina Baru, was carrying 118 passengers and crew when it ran into the trouble while en route across the Gulf of Bon in eastern Indonesia. The search and rescue team found 40 bodies at the Gulf of Bon of eastern Indonesia's Sulawesi province. The bodies were later transferred to a local hospital for post-mortem examination. The authorities were obliged to search for 7 days, and then, depending on the effectiveness of the search, they could be extended further. Every half hour, a child drowns in Bangladesh. Authorities have recently made swimming lessons mandatory at schools in order to fight what is the biggest cause of death among youngsters. Here is a report.
The grief is still etched on her face. Yahanara's son drowned 4 years ago while playing in a Dhaka canal. In a bitter irony, a few days beforehand, he'd asked his mother for swimming lessons.
It is extremely important for a child to know how to swim. I don't want any mother to suffer the agony I'm going through. Every child should be taught how to swim.
Bangladesh is a country crisscrossed by deltas, and boat accidents and drownings are all too frequent. Drowning is the biggest cause of death among people under 18, with a child dying in water every 30 minutes on average. In response, the government has pledged to make swimming lessons mandatory for all school children.
I was scared of water before. My mother and the instructor, and then a lot of people helped me learn to swim. Now I can swim.
Few people here know how to swim, often because of a lack of facilities in one of the world's poorest countries. To help counter that, UNICEF is providing inflatable pools and some funding. It also hopes to change attitudes.
One of the challenges I can see is probably for girls and young women, because traditionally for young women to be swimming and to be active in sports is not something that's very culturally accepted in some areas, but we're breaking those taboos.
With some 230 rivers and around 40 million people living in coastal areas, the challenge for Bangladesh is huge as it bids to bring an end to so many avoidable deaths.
And now for the general weather forecast. Clear to partly cloud skies will prevail over the northern governorate of the Sultanate, with chances of scattered rain over the governorates of Musandam and Hajar Mountains. Rest of the Sultanate will have clear skies with chances of low clouds and fog late at night and early morning on the southeastern coast. Winds will be northeasterly to easterly light to moderate, occasionally active over the coastal areas overlooking the Arabian Sea, while it will be southeasterly to easterly on the rest of the governorates. Seas will be moderate to rough along the coast of Arabian Sea, with a maximum wave height of 2.5 meters along the rest of the Sultanate's coast. It will be slight to moderate with a maximum wave height of 2 meters. You're watching the Sultanate of Oman television, and now before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. Fighting raged in the city of Taiz as the Yemeni army regains control of a number of areas in Marib. Damascus stresses the importance of implementing UN Security Council decision and stopping the influx of militants from Syria's neighboring countries. And Iraqi forces liberate a number of neighborhoods in the southern part of the city of Ramadi from Daesh militants. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here in the newsroom and the studios, it's good night.